Hello and welcome to the radio show where our motto is to learn, know, and grow. My name is Tabitha.
Hello, my name is Chindi.
And we're back with another collaboration episode, this time with Dan, who is going to have a show on WCAALP 107.3, in which he's going to discuss world news, current events, and current topics, commentary, political commentary, and things of that nature. So he's going to interview us, and we're going to kind of interview him also.
So let's start that interview. I'm a political activist from the Occupy movement, from that standard. And I see the need for media that we control. Activists, community members, people on the ground. So how did you get into podcasting?
Thank you so much for asking that. So this is a vision or a dream that goes back a couple of years where I sort of discovered that I have an interest in personal and professional development. Professional development in the sense that in your career or whatever your career may be, you can always refine and improve yourself and sort of develop into either whether it be a leadership role or another capacity, and you can do your own independent studies, so to speak, to sort of improve yourself in that capacity. And the personal development comes into play with self-mastery, sort of understanding how to navigate this world but not be negative, sort of have more of a positive orientation, and that more or less helping to improve yourself, improve your life. Throughout that journey of discovering that's my interest or my passion, I discovered I want to potentially blog, have a website all about that, and also help people. So sort of furnish information, resources, and things of that nature, and give people opportunities to learn. And once you have access to information, you can empower yourself. And once you can empower yourself, you can make informed decisions, whether it be politically, socially, economically, so on and so forth. So that's what the dream, without knowing what I wanted to do, was. And I stumbled across podcasts and podcasting for that matter. And although I'm not so much a strident or extroverted individual, I kind of had this vision that, this could unify everything and sort of allow me to have the platform to discuss things that interest me, discuss the things that are not being discussed in the media, and give people opportunities to learn and give them alternatives, source of information to receive.
Well, great. That sounds great. Positive growth mindset. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's very interesting with the providing a model perhaps for other people in their growth journeys. We all have journeys. I myself can track mine, and it has led me in part here as one of the projects. One of my mottos is it's not ours unless it's ours, whether it's our homes, currency, and our media, especially. I see a story getting around on Facebook, is our media dividing us? Well, it's not our media, is what it's like. So I don't really bother reading into that conversation. How far do you think you've come so far?
In this journey, and I brought my friend Chindi along because I said, I've heard podcasts where people talk by themselves. It's just not, I just don't want my podcast to be like that. I kind of want there to be alternative views and opinions interjected. And whereas we are excellent friends, we are also not necessarily sort of yes people to one another. He has conflicting opinions, so much so that we started a segment called Unpopular Opinion, because he has his own independent ways of thinking about things. So I'll let him speak to how we got here, but I kind of set myself on a path to okay, this idea has to go live. So I set a date of July 11th because I like 7-Eleven, and I figured that'll be excellent anniversary date year after year. So we wanted to go live at that date. So we started a little bit playing around with the concept, getting a microphone, figuring out what sort of applications to use to record.
Very impressive looking mic you have there.
Thank you. And what platforms we're going to be on, and of course we need a social media. So baby steps. Since May, we started creating our social media profiles, our website, and things, and I feel like we've come a long way. Chindi can also speak to that too.
Yes, we've come a very long way. I mean, when we started out, what happened was we were first of all, our ideas were a little bit different. I sort of wanted it more to be about just say mainly educational. She wanted it to be an alternative view, as she stated. And I thought our idea was better, that we could accommodate both. We could make it educational, and at the same time, it could also be the alternative news, and it's alternative not in the way of, fake news as you hear about it on TV. It's alternative in the sense that there's news out there that's not reported that people, want to talk about. I mean, one segment we talked about recently was a Sierra Leone issue, and it was very interesting how many people knew about Sierra Leone, because at the same time, that's when I think there was there was a terrorist attack, I think, around that time. And I'm not sure whether there was a shooting around that time.
It was Charlottesville,
protest.
Barcelona,
yes.
and the eclipse.
And the eclipse. The eclipse got more coverage than Sierra Leone disaster.
Yes.
And so, Tabitha's idea came along. It won out basically. So we've had this debate. So I also tend to be a little bit more sympathetic, partially to the conservatives. So I'm not very radical. I'm more moderate in the sense. And by that I don't mean that Tabitha's radical. She isn't. But we just think differently about that. I try to sympathize with people who think differently from me, and try to think from their point of view. Why are they thinking the way they are? And how can we bridge that gap? And so that's where I come from normally, and that's why sometimes I have very unpopular opinions.
Well, I do that as a radical as well. One definition of alternative would be to report that the Syrian war has ended, or at least it's winding down. And that would be alternative because it's not mentioned in the established narratives. Where to take this? So that was what I was thinking. Yeah, right. So I'll pass it back to you. Yeah, actually I could speak more about how one of my favorite podcasts is called The Seed Route. And in that way it's educational in that he has very interesting guests on every day. And it's also kind of a growth journey in that one guest will lead to him booking the next guest. It's like one guest mentions some other concept that he didn't know about, and then he'll book it. So it's almost like a continuous conversation, one expert to another, one author to another. Do you see your podcast or your show doing that?
Yes. Actually,
what kind of education?
Well, we wanted to be sort of an interview show, but many of our topics ended up being so as far as education and things we've decided to cover, we read a lot as a culture. And to the point about talking about this rather than the Kardashians, if you will, or talking about the Super Bowl or things of that nature, as much as you can consume things in the media that are negative, you kind of have a threshold that you can reach. But if you consume things that you're learning, you kind of never really have a threshold. There's no ceiling on how much you can learn, and it's actually very positive because it tends to improve your life. Case in point, Chindi discovered, and I call him Dr. Jekyll. I make jokes about it because he'll read something and he'll try it. So he read about cold showers and the positive effects they can have, and we turned that into a challenge. So it was combined with waking up earlier, which many people we talk about, and we explain why it's better to, good to wake up earlier and why people have proposed this is great for you. But Chindi added the dimension of adding cold showers, which, as far as the benefits, he can go into that, and I'll finish with some that I know of. But he is still doing it to this day. I kind of abandoned it because it's got colder, but he can speak to that.
Well, cold water. I do cold showers and cold water. I do actually ice waters twice a week. And then the rest of the time I tend to do cold showers, and it wakes you up. It gives you so much energy. It gives you much more energy than a cup of coffee would. It really wakes you up. You're in the sleepy state, and when you feel that cold shower, every time I feel it, it's like, wow, it's really cold. But then afterwards, my mind is really alert, and it gets into survival mode. So when you go out there, you can tackle the challenges that you face, the great challenges that you face at work with different individuals, and it makes me feel that I'm in control of the situation. Yeah, so that's how I see it.
Yeah, the person who we credit with, it's been going on since ancient China, but the person we credit was a gentleman who wrote a is a Navy SEAL. He wrote an article about how he ended up adopting that, and there's scientific benefits also. In addition to being, it's like a defibrillator for your morning. When I was doing it, I was like, I was on the money. I was on the ball. Like I was really awake. I really didn't require or need coffee. And that's one. And then there's also it says it's really good for your like lymphatic system, your immune system, and things of that nature. And it has all these sort of benefits, which we went into under the description on our YouTube when we talked about it. So that was just one thing we introduced. Another sort of educational thing we talked about was, and we will talk about it, will be taxes. We're going to talk about sort of things that people don't know when they just go let someone prepare their taxes for them, and things as a business that you should know, and things that's being incorporated. Another educational topic we went into in depth was about pest control, which is the sort of like homeopathic things we know that are non-toxic, that things like steps and things you can take, and something I suggested actually ended up working for Chindi, which was you did the mothballs, I believe.
Yes, it's pest control using mothballs, smells.
They're called mothballs.
Yeah.
But yes, planting certain things around your house.
Yes, and
Lavender oil for rodents, so to speak. The people don't know that that's a like an alternative to keep
and
them out
doing
of your
things
house.
that attract predators. That's that's part of permaculture work that I'm interested in.
Absolutely.
How long?
At the half, at 1:30.
Okay.
Go to break.
And aside from just actual things that can contribute to your life, like those tips and tricks we talk about, I actually adopted a practice of waking up at 4:30. So taking that 5 a.m. and just taking it back even further, and it's been a huge
So you're
improvement.
not even waking up with the sun then?
No, yeah, a lot of times I'm
Because
beating it.
I would expect benefits from working into your own kind of rhythm where, say, you are waking up when you're at the end of a REM cycle so that you aren't in a semi-sleep state
Yep.
when your alarm goes off. Because the alarm is based on a work schedule, not your biological schedule.
Absolutely, and it's very artificial.
Personally, I am not dependent on coffee at all, and I don't drink it. I just kind of accept that I must sleep 8 hours, and that I need this many REM cycles, of which are an hour and a half each, and that I simply must. That we should at least, it doesn't matter what part of the day, as long as you're getting enough, like 1.5 hours. You know, if I go to bed too late, I just make sure that I'm taking an hour and a half nap later in the day, like a siesta.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like that does me good.
Yeah, it's
So-
actually being in tune with like the natural way, the
Do
natural
you
state.
warm things after you take your cold shower? I feel like that the health benefit results when you're rubber banding and building up, tolerance.
Well, he's like an Olympic runner. So right after taking cold showers, he's also putting
He
himself
runs.
through strenuous.
I'm not an Olympic
Warm on
runner.
that.
I'm not an Olympic runner though, but I'm
But
fast.
you do exercise right now.
Yes.
He runs more than people
That
who I
certainly
know
makes
who run
sense.
run.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, so it has to be, it can't just be, well, usually the problem with certain, say, health tips is that they're put out as individual items.
Exactly,
when
it's
they
not
really
holistic.
Need to be, right, it's not holistic, it needs to be paired with, you either pair it with other things around it, every action is in a context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when, for example, getting up earlier, we caution people that if you're going to get up earlier, then you have to sort of plan your day out so you know that by the time you're getting to sleep, you've accomplished what you wish to accomplish. You know, eating comes into play with that because getting up earlier, you kind of are like ahead of everyone, so to speak. So when everyone was kind of still thinking it's 9 a.m., I'm feeling more like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, because I've been up for like half the day already at that juncture. So, you know, incorporating your health and things and sort of self-care into that. So like you stated, you can't go off in one direction and do something in isolation. You have to think about it holistically.
Yeah, so is there, open-ended, is there any topic that you wouldn't cover? You mentioned health, you mentioned, or actually, is there anything you haven't covered yet?
Well, we've talked, let me think about what we've talked about, a myriad of things. When we talked about some social cultural issues, but we really don't talk about them in the way that they're typically trending. So, for example, when LeVar Ball was a topic of discussion, we made it into a topic about confidence versus cockiness and how people perceive you versus how you perceive yourself, and how actually having that sort of mentality can be an advantage, and Chindy was more on the unpopular opinion side about why it's not great. We talked about Zimbabwe and its history, how it came to be the way it was, and Mugabe leaving.
And the current political situation.
Absolutely. So we covered like almost a myriad of things. So that's why I kind of like that we're not a niche show, whereas some podcasts you tune in and they're so specific that they're talking about bluegrass music and the complementary, moonshine that goes with it. So you're never going to hear the same thing every week, but you're going to always either learn or sort of hear a conflicting or contrasting opinion, and we're kind of going depth and enlighten people. That's our objective. I'll let Chindy also speak to that.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. One of the things we've not discussed is edging. I'm into anti-edging skits, into whereby you exercise and behave a certain way, and also it's about attitude and mindset. So as I'm in my 30s now, I'm thinking a lot about what, how do you reduce the effects of aging, or how do you make sure that even when you're 60, 70, you still have that mindset of a 30-year-old and you still have that body of a 30-year-old. And there are people who've been successful at that. So I want to talk more about that, but we haven't yet.
Well, with that, I will close out this half of Three Left Show. Three lefts for news in a different direction. Join us for the next half. You're listening to WCAALP, The Arts.